welcome to another episode of the RevRx podcast, where we show you how to thrive in faith, family, and health. My name is Chad Potts, and I'm your host. Today, I'm so excited to bring you special guest, Super Bowl 50 champion, David Bruton Jr. David played in the NFL for several years for the Denver Broncos, Washington Redskins, and he had quite a career. But here's the thing. Life after football is really where he's thriving today. You see, not many people take a detour to the NFL on their way to become a doctor of physical therapy. But that's exactly what David did. You're going to hear today his story about becoming drafted, some things he learned in NFL, as well as some other players who influenced him in big ways. And you're going to hear what he's doing today in the world, where he's coming alongside athletes and he's helping them really thrive through injuries and setbacks that they face. Who better to encourage an injured athlete than one who has been through a lot of that himself? So without further ado, I introduce to you my new friend, David Bruton Jr. Dr. David Bruton. Man, what a privilege it is to have you here on the RevRx podcast. Your story is one that I've been really looking forward to.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to have a conversation with you, talk a little shop, and flaunt Notre Dame in front of you.
Of course, my Bulldog roots are, not loving the outfit choice today, but I'll forgive you.
I
appreciate you being
all
here.
Forgiveness, right?
That's right. We got to give grace, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I know some people call you affectionately Dr. Dave. I introduced you that way when I jumped on here, but man, you have an untraditional path to the doctor of physical therapy route. Not a lot of people have a stop in the NFL on their way to become a physical therapist.
Right.
But man, I'd love to just kind of hear your story, as much or little as you want to share about your path to the NFL. Has that always been a dream of yours? How'd you get into football? Just walk us down that road.
Honestly, my first dream was to run in the Olympics. I wanted to run in the Olympics. So I always was a runner, fast, had family members who competed at a high level. Tyson Gage, my cousin, so track was in the family, right?
Sure.
But yeah, I didn't start football till seventh grade, so it was super late. Minesburg, Ohio, everybody's starting first grade, second grade, or coming out the womb with a helmet on, right? That's kind of what how people operated down there. But my first love wasn't necessarily football. I happened to get good at it. I was always considered the skinny kid. My dad always thought I was going to be the basketball player. And I had some trials and tribulations on my way to the NFL. It's definitely not the traditional route, or I wasn't always the star, right? When you think about guys who make it to the league, they were always the guy. Once they stepped foot on the field, you knew they were the guy. You knew they were the guy. You knew at all these levels. For me, it wasn't until my junior year in high school when things started clicking. They brought up a freshman to play ahead of me my sophomore year. And it wasn't until the end of junior year where everything started to click. I was just another guy out there, another body. And then
late bloomer.
Those last 4 games, I had 8 picks in those last 4 games. Man. So I caught stride, caught fire at the right time. So then kind of ran with that. Didn't know much about the recruiting process. So started getting letters. Indiana was the first letter that I got. We beat them, by the way. But Indiana was the first letter that I got. And then, it kind of became a reality. Okay, football, I might be able to play football at the next level. So you kind of bought in a little bit more. I was always a hard worker, but that ramped up the level of hard work there. Fast forward into college. I commit to Notre Dame. Go off to college. My freshman year, my oldest son is born. So talk about some trials and tribulations there, right? You hear about it, guys having kids young and, not necessarily knowing how to be a father. You're a young man yourself. I go off to Notre Dame. I'm 17. I just turned 18. And then 4 months later, I have my oldest son born. And so constantly was going back and forth whether or not I wanted to stay in school, go back to Dayton, Ohio, dealing with a lot of that decisions. I don't know if I'm necessarily ready for fatherhood. Fatherhood's back there. Okay, maybe I can't handle school. Ultimately, what came down to is I had great coaches, teammates, and a counselor that kind of helped me make a decision to stay at Notre Dame.
Awesome. It's a big
Yeah, it was
adjustment.
a big adjustment, but it honestly was the best decision that at that time. Stay in school, I'll get a more opportunity. There would be more opportunity for him, whether I went to the league or not. Uh, so ultimately stayed there. And it was my junior year, my third year. Uh, I get told that I'm going to be a starter, and then it's like, okay, I'm out there playing. I'm just the guy I just got into the Michigan State game happen, and then things start to click. I get a big time interception there, and then I start making more plays throughout the season, turnovers on turnovers, and a lot of tackles. And then I get approached by an agent. Like, okay, NFL is now a possibility. Never thought about it, like super naive, right? Like I didn't know anything about the draft process except for guys got drafted on the day, and there's a combine, and then same thing with college recruiting. Didn't know ups and downs and how that operated. So then I get drafted by the Denver Broncos. Very fortunate enough there. Super related. I love Denver, hence why I'm still here in the Denver metro area. And it was my third year where I was told that I was potentially going to get cut. So I get told that I'm going to get cut while I'm eating a pregame meal with watching Phineas and Ferb because my oldest son, that's what he used to watch, Phineas and Ferb. So watching that show, coach comes up next to me, is like, Brooke, we're probably going to cut you after this game, third preseason game, if you don't do something special. I want you to do something special.
Wow.
So I go out there versus Seattle. I block 2 punts. I was like, well, something special happened, right? God gave me the grace, gave me the energy, gave me the fortitude to go out there and perform versus adversity. And with that being said, it's like that kind of solidified myself as a special teams ace in the league and always gave me an opportunity to maintain a job, keep a job in the league, and ultimately be able to play 7 years with the Broncos and one with the formerly known Washington Redskins.
Yeah, I love the story along the way where you're like, I just had my head down and I was working hard and I wasn't thinking about the next level. And then, like, man, it seemed like that third year was always the pivotal year for you, in high school, then in college, and then again in the pros. And so, awesome career. You stuck around in the league for a while. When you look back at your career and, you've played with some pretty cool guys, Peyton Manning. We've talked about our hometown hero here, Demaryius Thomas, Bebe, rest in peace. And, you've played with some incredible guys. What are some of the biggest highlights you think of when you look back at your career?
I mean, as far as highlights, I mean, obviously when DT caught the playoff pass from Tebow and Broncos' first playoff win in God knows how long, right? So very electric there. I remember starting that game and had a bum Achilles, and I'm getting my Achilles worked on, and then boom, one play, two. Praise the Lord. I don't have to go back out there because I don't know how much more this lower leg can take. But then, our Super Bowl 50-year run, there's multiple moments of, us battling through adversity, making big plays, myself getting to play more on defense and being an actual contributing factor to the no-fly zone and being considered that.
Sure.
There's a lot of plays there, but I think that pivotal moment, that shift was when I blocked those 2 punts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I'm always going to be seen as a special teams guy. Like, somehow, some way, like, yes, I thought I would be a starter at some point, yada, yada, yada. But this is going to give me the ability to keep putting film out there, to have a career, to provide for the family. Like, there's nothing wrong with being a special teams guru, especially when you're considered one of the top ones in the league. Like, you're always going to have that opportunity to continue playing. So yeah, I think it was that game specifically where it's like, okay, I'm a pro. Now I'm moving in from a young man to a veteran to a captain to, a mentor.
Yeah. Wow. And yeah, you can see that as you mature in one area, you kind of grow and it takes you into that next level. I've seen that a lot in life. I'm obviously not a NFL baller myself, but I've seen that a lot in life to where a lot of times we have to master where we are in order to really grow to that next level. I'm a pastor for young adults, and a lot of times I see them, they have these high dreams. They want to run the company, or they want, all of these things. I'm like, well, be great where you are, mature where you are, and then the Lord will open up doors to keep on moving you down the road. And yeah, that no-fly zone, man, that was an impressive D you guys put together.
Oh yeah, no, it was tremendous, and kind of like your deal, like putting your best forth effort or mastering that particular task. For us, it was mastering each of those 16 games to get to that Super Bowl, and then those next three. Right, it was all about mastering the task at hand, not looking too far ahead because you have to handle business right there in front of you.
And so what thinking about the guys you played with,
Mm-hmm.
what impact does some of them have on you? Was there one or two that you played with that you can think, all right, they really upped my game, whether it be physically, football related, or whether it be just mindset related? Are there a couple players that really rubbed off on you in a positive way?
Absolutely. The first two names off the top of my head are Brian Dawkins and Champ Bailey.
Yeah,
Right, Brian Dawkins came from Philly. It was his first year there. Champ, the seasoned veteran there too, here with the Broncos, and I have two Hall of Famers in lockers next to me.
it's crazy. Yeah,
Who understand the game, who played at a high level for a long time, who have been all pros and pro bowlers. And so I've learned how to be a professional from them. Like, right, Dawkins taught me how to watch film. Champ taught me how to analyze practice. Champ also helped me with how to lift in the locker room. Like, okay, we were that old school lifting, like trying to throw a lot of weight on. It's like Champ was like, we're DBs, we need to run. Like, unless you're Dawkins and you're trying to bulk up and smoke somebody in the face year in year out, like you need to be able to run and stuff like that. You don't need to lift super heavy. So like there's little things that I gained from these guys, like how to take care of your body, that ultimately taught me how to be a professional. And I utilized some of those skills um in my today life and my life as a business owner, as a PT. Like I utilized what I learned through them as a professional, how to reflect, how to criticize myself, how to not look at myself in this rose colored lenses, right? Like actually look down and dirty and like study what you need to get better at. Because it's easy to study what you're good at, right? Like with a test or whatever, it's like, cool, I want to feel good until that test smacks you upside the head with 75% of the other stuff that you didn't study.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So they taught me a lot. Those are the two guys that like I attribute a lot to my career in that sense. And then Wesley Woodyard, who was a special teams ace before I got here. He moved into a starting defensive linebacker role, and then I took over the captainship of special teams. But he taught me how to be a pro in the community, how to be a pro. Like he was undrafted, like so I was fourth round, so we kind of similar in the sense where we're expendable. And he taught me like, okay, even though you're expendable, but you've been blessed with the opportunity. These opportunities you're able to go out to the community and motivate and facilitate change and all this thing. So I learned a lot from him in the community sense of Colorado.
Love that, and you're still doing great work in the community. I love that you use your platform for good. And I've talked to several athletes now, and it's really refreshing to see. Hey, you have this platform. God's given you the ability to be able to create change. You're right. Make a difference in this world where it counts, somewhere that you're passionate about. And that kind of takes me, fast forward into life after football. I want to talk about physical therapy, but first I want to talk about Bruton's books. That's something you're passionate about. It's a foundation you started. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. It's something that's been innate and driven into me since I was a young kid. Literacy, reading, education. People might say it was beaten into me because I had a bad report card. My mom got a hold of me, but that's another story. But after that report card, like I took education so seriously because it opened the door for so many more opportunities. Um, so like as a football player, I started doing books in 2020, 2015. Crazy. It's almost 10 years in
Yeah.
April. It'll be 10 years having the foundation. I wanted to do something that was true to me, and education was always true to me. Like there's a lot of football camps out there, a lot. You know, football players have football camps in their hometown, local town, whatever. What was something different that I could do, and and something that I could be more involved in, and literacy was one of those. Literacy was something that nobody can take that away from you, and something that I always did in the locker room. Dawkins would call me a nerd because I was always reading in the training room or in the cold tub or between meetings. Like I was always reading something. Um, so when I started doing books, the idea was to make a change, make a positive change, whether that is um, addressing K through third grade accessibility or like putting together like an area for these kids to read, or how can we help improve test scores, or go to these schools and motivate, because a lot of these schools are underserved, underprivileged, and they're people of color. So it's like there's that relatability piece that comes along with it.
Right.
So how can I make a positive change? Not necessarily just throwing money at a problem, but like getting in front, seeing the resources being utilized in a way to, that that impacts the fundamental ability of these kids.
Sure.
I love to pose the question to these kids: what career does it require you to read and comprehend it? And they'll be like, football player, and I'm like, you think I'm a dummy? Like, right? Like, you think I have to be able to read the playbook? I have to be
Yeah.
able to go to college. I have to be able to comprehend what I'm reading and then put it out into practice, out in the real world.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there's just a lot of life lessons I get to do with Bruton's books, and to be hands on and seeing some of these kids and how they change, and how they flourish, and how they're motivated, and like it's something true near and dear to me, that and I'm very grateful that I've had the opportunity to utilize my platform to make an impact in the Denver, Colorado community.
Yeah, I've loved reading about it and kind of studying up on it. I'm going to put a link in the show notes on this, but how can my listeners get involved? I know there's always opportunities for donations and things, right?
Mhm. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There's always opportunities for donations. We're putting together a book list, a reading list on Amazon, so people can donate specifically to those needs. Like, so when we partner with DPS and DPS Foundation, their focus are on culturally enriched books. So, right, a book that has somebody that looks like you, or speaks like you, or
Yeah.
is in that language.
Right.
Because there's a big melting pot, a huge demographic difference out there in the heart of Denver versus not just all first generation, not just all generationally English speaking individuals. So it's like first
Yeah.
generation English speakers or Vietnamese, or like this might be their first month in an English classroom, right? So
Right. Right.
so trying to address and meet the needs where they are, and that's kind of where it runs into physical therapy. It's like I do that as a patient, as a provider to a patient. I meet them where they are. Well, where are these kids? How can we meet them where they are? So yeah, we do donations through the website, dreamsbooks.org. We'll have an Amazon list here put together. Hopefully by the end of the month, we're talking with the rest of DPS schools as far as what they actually need, and then we do a yearly golf foundation where we adopt a school, and then we donate. The last 2 years, donated 20 grants to two respective schools, and
Awesome.
then we want to donate more. We want to adopt, 4 or 5 schools and make sure they have a sustainable program going on to
Sure.
make an impact. So we look at needs analysis. What's your goals? What metrics are you using? Like it's very in depth, because we're, like I said, we don't want to just throw money at a problem. We
Mhm.
want to see and facilitate change.
Yeah, and you've got the brain power behind that, and I love that. So yeah, I'm going to put links in that. I encourage all my listeners to go out there and check that out, and be looking for that Amazon list too, because that's going to be really cool. Hey, you can
Yes, sir.
you can pick your book and send it out there, and donate that to the needs. And then you mentioned physical therapy. So tell us about post football. All right. Number one, I'm always interested to ask, at what point did you realize it's time to move on? Was that a difficult decision for you? And then how did you settle on physical therapy as your life after football?
No, I don't think it wasn't that difficult of a decision at that time. Um, I had I was in my eighth season. I got another concussion. I had 6 concussions on record. Like,
Wow.
okay, it might be time, right?
Sure.
I had opportunities out after the Redskins that I could have went played with Jacksonville or somewhere else. It just wasn't. I just wasn't in it anymore, right? So, and then you start to see the business aspect of it, and it takes away some of that love from it and the
Hmm.
ugliness that sometimes you see in the league, because it is a business first, and people forget about that.
That's
So walking away from the game wasn't that difficult, but I knew that I wanted to be a PT. Like, I knew that I wanted to be a physical therapist for the longest time, since 7th grade when I first was exposed to it. Uh, so my athletic experience kind of kept that profession in the forefront, right? It's like, okay,
sure.
I'm on the table because a PT working on me. I'm on the table again as an athletic trainer. So I was always on the table. So I knew that once I was done with the league, it's like, okay, what do I need to do to become a PT?
Mm.
Okay, well, my majors at Notre Dame were political science and sociology.
Yep.
Not much is transferring over to physical therapy in that sense. So I had to take
Yeah.
all those science classes for 2.5 years, and then do a 2.5 year doctoral program at the University of Colorado. But yeah, no, I think what kept motivating me was just those interactions, the interactions that I had with the athletic trainers, that I had with the physical therapist when I was hurt. My time on the table, and I know that there's a lot of parallels. Like, oh, people say, "Why do you want to be a PT?" Because I was on the table, right? Like I had experience with a PT. I loved my PT.
Sure.
I get that, but for me, what was when you go into an interview process, it's like, why do you want to be a PT? It's because I've had a multitude of different physical therapists, and some that I gelled well with, some that I didn't, some that I loved their approach, some that I didn't. So
Sure.
I learned from those experiences what I would want to do, what I would not want to do, and kind of see there's this adaptability and creativity that I can utilize from my experience to help patients down the line. So that's why I wanted to be a physical therapist. Um, so yeah, my time on that table, it brings on that relatability piece. Like, yep, I was there.
I've been there.
Yep, I broke my leg and missed one of the biggest games of my life. Like I know exactly what you're going through. Let's talk about it. Let's tap into that mental aspect. Let's get you back as soon as possible. Or that whole you can't make the club in the tub deal. So like, oh, it's a junior year and you sprain your ankle and it's pretty bad. Okay, usually a sprained ankle is about 6 weeks. Well, your season's only 10 weeks. Okay, we got to try to accelerate this. So I'm trying to see here, here, and here. Cool, you're 75%. You got to go get a scholarship. The NIL and transfer portal's a nightmare. We got to get you out there as soon as possible, right? So like opportunities are limited.
The struggles of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you are you more in athletics that kind of vein, or are you full spectrum physical therapy with your business between the lines?
I'm more athletic.
Okay.
More athletic. Where like the actual treatment area it's a gym. It is a legit gym with squat racks and with cable machine, turf. Have two tables in there. Like it's legit a gym. So tapping into that mental aspect of the athlete. Like when you get hurt, like I know in the league, when you get put on IR, you're kind of removed. Like you're not in the same meeting room, you're not in the same treatment time. Like you're kind of removed from the team in a sense. Even though you're still getting a paycheck, you're still on the roster, yada yada yada. But you are removed because you're essentially not valuable at the time. Like, what have you done for me lately? Like you're not doing anything for me lately when you're on IR. So how can I help these athletes who don't get to be in the gym, don't get to listen to that same music, don't get to be around their teammates? How can I help them tap into like you're still an athlete, hurt or not? You're still an athlete. Like so, if you feel like you're in a locker room where you get the vibe or the music hits a certain type of way, like it doesn't match your culture, you're gonna you're gonna see more growth in that sense. Like you're eliminating that depressive thought or those negative thoughts or whatever. Now you're somewhere where you're welcomed and familiarized and all that.
Sure.
So when thinking about setting up this clinic, like I wanted to do something a little different where as an athlete, I don't want to walk into an office space and you have me do bands and stuff.
Yeah.
If I'm coming back from a knee, I want to make sure I'm just as powerful. I want to make sure I can still jump. I want to make sure I can still cut. I want to make sure my reaction, like, can you do that in an office space that the ceilings are 8.5 feet? Like, no. Like, I'm 6'2". I had a 41-inch vertical. My head's going through the ceiling. Like, right. So, yeah.
Well, that's awesome, and that's a much needed thing. Who better to do that than someone with the experience that you have? And that kind of brings me to another point I wanted to talk about. You'd mentioned that you had several concussions in your career. That's something, of course, that we're seeing more and more of, in the NFL. I don't know if we're seeing more of it, but we're seeing the effects of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we're starting to see some of the damage that it does to the body, to the brain. We've had people that we know that have been affected in some way by that. What is that? The NFL is, and I guess football as a whole, is trying to make the sport safer. What's your view from a physical therapist standpoint? From this isn't to critique or anything like that, but just getting your intake on what can we do to make the funnest game in the world, in my opinion, to make it safer, because let's face it, there are people that are having health ramifications, sometimes even premature death, because of the injuries that were sustained playing NFL.
for me, like I would say, first off, like when to start playing tackling football, I think seventh grade would be a good grade. Like, right, give your body a little bit more time to mature, make your neck a little stronger, right? Um, Implementing the right strength program to get into that point. Like everybody used to believe lifting would stunt your growth. Like, no, it's more like just make sure they're doing it right so they don't get hurt.
Sure.
But football is not, honestly, it's not going to get safer. In my opinion, football is just going to continue to get faster. Guys are going to get bigger, and the collisions are going to get greater. Like
it's just physics, right?
Yeah, right. That's just how it's always going to be. Like, because what they said you can't target the head, right? They said everything's low. Okay, we saw an increase in ACL injuries, blown out knees. Like we saw an increase. Like there's going to be give and take some way somehow. The only way it's going to be safe is if it becomes flag football. Like, and as you get bigger, as you get faster, stronger than your opponents do, that helmet isn't necessarily just protection anymore. Like you're using it as as
It's
a
kind of
battering ram,
weaponized,
right?
right?
Yeah, yeah. Like you're going right there, right? It's like I can think of my buddy Will Allen when he blew out Willis McGahee's knee
Yeah.
in that bowl game, Ohio State versus Miami. It's like, bam, helmet right
Yep.
there, right? So it's like I don't see it getting safer. They can put forth all the rules and the fines or whatever, but I mean, there's still people are still going to get snagged. People are still going to get hit. You're not getting rid of the linemen doing. They might be this far away, but they're still banging their heads
They
more
are.
so than a safety and a special teamer.
Right.
Like
Right.
those little micro collisions add up. Like that's 70 plays a game that you're doing that.
It's just the nature of the game, isn't it?
Yeah. That's the nature of the game. You can't change that. You're not going unless you ban football altogether.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of been my take too from the outside looking in is that, they're putting in some of these rules and sometimes they stick, sometimes they don't, but it just doesn't seem like it's really having the positive effect that we think. But I think it's just the nature of it. And you get into it and you kind of know that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
My mom wouldn't let me play football. Now my mom listens to these podcasts, so I'm going to say, I love you, Mom. But, hey, you never know, man. I could have been, the next Christian McCaffrey. But my mom wouldn't let me play football. It wasn't safe. And, like I get that though. Like I'm a parent now and I understand that thought process and, realizing that, hey, sometimes you can't wrap people in bubble wrap. Sometimes you got to let them go have fun and, just wish for the best. And so, I'm glad you recognized the concussions and you got out of the game when you did, cause that's quite a lot. Did you have any kind of effects from yours that lasted beyond just your traditional phase or, what was your experience with some of those?
I mean, I've been in the hospital twice with them during the game. The whole cut the jersey off, remove the helmet, thumb up. I did that one time. Um, the last concussion where like I started getting headaches more frequently. I had some convergence issues with my vision. My left eye wasn't tracking, so there was more physical changes in that last one. And I wonder if that's just a culmination of like the other five prior.
Sure.
So what's crazy to me is just how much concussion rehab has changed from my first two seasons. It was sit in a dark room, don't do anything until something get better. And then as we've progressed, we became a lot more progressive and aggressive with rehab. Let's get you on the bike. Let's start reintroducing some stuff. Let's utilize the rest of your system to kind of help heal the brain. Okay, you're in this metabolic cascade right now. We got to feed you, kind of like a muscle. Like
Yep.
after you work out, there's damage. You drink protein. Well, after a concussion, there's damage. Get carbs. Like carbs is the energy for the brain. So like there's definitely been a progressive shift as far as how to treat a concussion.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got out at the right time. Very, very grateful for that. I get some numbness. I got some ridiculous symptoms down into my left hand. So some things as a PT get a little difficult throughout the day, but ultimately I got out relatively unscathed versus some of my teammates who had 14 surgeries or 15 surgeries or had 10 concussions or something like that, or they've had multiple concussions and never documented it.
Sure. And kind of the last question I have here as we're wrapping up is, you'd mentioned injuries and you kind of mentioned this when you talked about building your clinic.
Mm-hmm.
But injuries, they're part of it. They're part of the process. You can't go all out. becoming the bigger, faster, stronger human that you're trying to become and not have some sort of injury. And a lot of times injuries are seen as setbacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned, if you're on the IR, you're removed from the team. It's a setback. It's almost like a punishment of sorts, it seems like. What happens mentally, not even with just you, but in some of the athletes that you're treating, what happens mentally through some of these injuries, and how are you coming alongside them to help them not only in a physical standpoint, but then also in a mental health and emotional health type of way as well?
I mean, I've seen a multitude of emotions like anger, stress, crying, tears. Like I've seen a multitude of different um, emotions that kind of come to fruition when you start talking about, okay, where you are in your career, what do you want to do this season? When you start bringing up goals, like if it's an injury that's going to cut your whole season off, cut your season short, how do you navigate that? So these emotions are real because they not only affect them mentally, but like it affects how you perform physically.
Yeah.
Like it that's an ebb and flow too. And we
It's
have
all
already
connected.
ebbs and flows. Yeah. So like if that's ebbing and flowing, like you think that ebb and flow is gonna be deeper and steeper, like it's gonna go back and forth. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. But how I help them in that sense is like that relatability piece. I keep coming back to like, yes, I've been there. Okay, here's a book. Here's what I suggest you read. Okay, this is how long this surgery typically takes to heal, or this is how long this injury takes to heal. This individual had this injury. Like, and then like now sports are so, I guess, washed down in a sense, or like if everything's year round now. Even football starts to come year round.
Right.
So it's like, okay, you missed your season. There's still opportunity, like in your club season or
That's
in
right.
your second club season. Like there's still opportunities for you. It might not be in your high school season or that club season where all the scouts are there, but there's still opportunity. So just making sure that like there's still doors that are open. And then when you talk to a college kid, it's like, okay, you go to a school, there's also a chance to walk on. Like the door's not completely closed. It's
love
not
that.
completely closed.
Yeah, you kind of reframing it, and being able to help them see things from a big perspective and a big picture perspective. And there's a lot of value in that. And I love the work you're doing. I love your story. I love your heart for children and for literacy. And so thinking back at all you've been through, you've made it big. You played on the NFL's greatest stage. You came out with a ring. Congratulations. You navigated life very successfully post football. That's not something everybody can say. You've gone and you've gotten your doctorate degree in physical therapy. You're operating a successful practice. You've got a hand in the community. Let me ask you this, and this is one thing that in my coaching, I'm trying to teach men, what does it look like to thrive? Right. I see men every day that are broken and they're settling for way less than what they could be settling for. But for someone who's seen the highs and the lows of life, what would you say thriving is to you?
I would say thriving is pushing through your failures to meet that success, right? I feel like life is nothing but failures,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
Life is nothing but failures, like from tests, from losing a race to losing a game, right? Everything based on failures to ultimately get you to that success. Like, right, we learn our greatest things through those failures. So as you push through those failures, just know that there's success on the other side.
That's
There's
so good.
success right there waiting for you.
That's so good. I've seen that too. And learning to be able to see your failures as not a failure necessarily, but it's a learning opportunity.
Absolutely.
I think that that's beautiful. You said it so good. Keep pushing past those failures because success is right around the corner. You've lived it, you've walked it, and now you're encouraging others to do the same. So, Dr. Dave, man, what a privilege it's been. Thanks for joining us. And, man, can't wait to just stay active in your world. Keep seeing what you're doing because you're doing great things. And it's been a pleasure to have you here on the show.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. It was great.
Yes, sir. Thank you for listening to the RevRx podcast. We hope you enjoyed what you heard today, and if so, we'd love it if you would hit that subscribe button so that you'll never miss a new episode from us. Also, feel free to leave us reviews and comments, as we'd love to hear from you. Be blessed and be the very best you.